happening out there as Donald Trump continues to deal with fallout from his debate and post-debate comments. Fox host Megyn Kelly is responding, and here's what she said in an interview conducted on Friday, which was, of course, before his most recent comments about her.
My job is to go out there and ask probing questions that are hopefully smart and help the people learn something about this person, and in this context, his weaknesses. And I think I did that.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump this morning is not backing down.
However, that is not without its doubt when it comes
to... No, there's nothing to apologize. She asked a I thought, very unfair question, and so did everybody on social media. And I answered the question very well. What I said was totally appropriate. There was nothing wrong. Only a deviant, and I literally mean that, only a deviant would think anything other than that.
Well, although a new NBC survey combined with SurveyMonkey analysis shows that Carly Fiorina won the debate, Trump's comments on Thursday night didn't hurt him. Trump's comments did, however, cause him to get disinvited from the red state gathering this weekend, and now we're learning more about a shakeup in his campaign. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell is joining me from Atlanta with that side of the story. Good day to you, Kelly.
Alex, this was a sold-out mini convention of social conservatives known as the Red State Gathering. They're heading home today, some disappointed that Donald Trump was not here in person, others thinking the group made the right call to ask him to stay away. But when it comes to Donald Trump, he always has something more to say.
The party went on without Donald Trump.
I'm not sorry that he's not here.
This tailgate bash, part of a conservative convention, would have been Trump's place to rail against political correctness. Instead, top presidential candidates fired away at him.
Mr. Trump ought to apologize.
Jeb Bush addressed the controversy directly. Trump's attack on debate moderator Megyn Kelly after she challenged his comments about women.
Come on. Give me a break. I mean, do we want to win? Do we want to insult 53% of all voters?
Trump's invitation had been revoked, but questions about him persisted. Other candidates, like Mike Huckabee, were tired of talking Trump.
I'm running for president. I'm not running for the social media critic for somebody else who's running for president.
Trump's turmoil turned inward Saturday. A new fight spilled into public view. Longtime business ally and presidential campaign advisor Roger Stone is out. Stone provided his resignation letter, which cited the current controversies involving personalities and provocative media fights. Stone wrote, "I no longer can remain involved in your campaign." But more controversy. The campaign claimed Mr. Trump fired Roger Stone. And the reason they gave, that Roger wanted to use the campaign for his own publicity. Trump's top Iowa campaign aide and former contestant on his show The Apprentice, Tana Gertz, likes Trump's combative style.
And when he becomes the president, of course his tone will change. Right now, if you go after him, he's sending in the missiles.
While Donald Trump was a part of the conversation here, many of the candidates who addressed voters and talked to us as reporters did not even want to use Donald Trump's name. They told us they would much prefer to focus on their own campaigns and on the issues that were important to conservatives. But Donald Trump remains a factor because he still is popular among many of those who were gathered here. Alex?
All right, Kelly O'Donnell, thank you for that. For more analysis about the impact of Donald Trump's comments, let's bring in Larry Sabato, director of UVA's Center for Politics. Good to see you, my friend. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Alex. Nice to see you.
Let's take a listen to the way Donald Trump describes his style.
With all of the problems that we've got, you look at what's going on in the country with crime and with our inner cities and everything, and all they talk about is tone. Jeb Bush said, well, Mr. Trump's tone is not. Well, we don't have enough time for tone. This political correctness is just absolutely killing us as a country. You can't say anything.
How does Donald Trump and his particular brand of campaign fit into American political discourse, Larry? I mean, is this exactly what democracy should look like? Is it fair to appeal to people's fears as well as to their hopes?
That's a great question, Alex, a broader question. You know, you got to remember, elections are our substitute for the way other societies achieve change. And how do they achieve it? Riots in the streets and coups d'etats. Our method is peaceful. Unfortunately, the rhetoric is not always peaceful. So you have to put this in context, not to excuse anything that Donald Trump has uttered. I think eventually you have to rely on the voters. You have to realize that they will reward or punish candidates for what they say and do. And there's a lesson I learned decades ago when I first started following politics. You don't usually get the votes of those you insult.
Do you think the fact that he just fired his campaign advisor says much about his future in this election? Although I should say there's discrepancies whether he was fired or that he resigned, but nonetheless.
Another old lesson of politics is that whenever you have a shakeup in a campaign, it isn't good news. You know, shakeups don't occur in campaigns that are going well. Shakeups occur when the candidate's unhappy or the poll numbers are taking a dive or whatever is happening. So that's an indication that that debate didn't go quite as smoothly as Donald Trump and his people would have wanted.
I've asked this question a couple of times today, but I want to get your response because both the Washington Post and the New York Times reflect all the GOP angst over Trump. Do you think from within the Republican establishment, there is angst there that he is holding the process hostage because he's got this independent threat looming? And I'm curious, how long will they tolerate that? Or do they have no control over that?
They have no control and no choice, Alex. Just think back to 1992. Clinton versus Bush versus Perot. And Perot didn't cost Bush the election. Clinton would have won a two-way race, Bill Clinton, that is. But Perot caused enormous problems for the Republicans, especially when he began running in February of 1992. Well, Donald Trump has started even earlier, and he's clearly got a lot of intense supporters. And if my Twitter feed is any indication, a lot of them say under no circumstances will they support, for example, Jeb Bush. I think it's a big problem for the Republicans, even if he doesn't run as an independent, but particularly if he does.
Okay, let's shift gears now to Carly Fiorina. She's been making headlines after that debate performance. The new analysis we have here from NBC SurveyMonkey, it was conducted after the debate. It shows her gaining ground. So what do you make of the way potential voters are responding to her?
She was the clear winner from the kids' table debate, the 5 p.m. debate.
Right.
And after all, 6 million people saw it. That's not a minor number, a lot less than the 24 million who saw the prime time debate. Here's her problem, though. She has to find a way, first of all, to get some real financial support. She's raised very, very little. And she has to generate momentum and headlines in order to gain some polling points and get into the next debate in mid-September. If she's not in the primetime debate in mid-September, I think she'll fizzle.
Do you think anybody drops out from the GOP between now and September 16 in that debate?
Well, if anybody drops out, it'll probably be from the kids' table. I mean, there are some candidates there who are headed for a handful of votes, and I do mean a handful, like 3 digits in Iowa and New Hampshire. So eventually they figure that out, I would suppose.
Okay. Larry Sabato, always good to see you. Thanks for the chat.